Go ahead.
I'd like to call to order Town of Dayton Board of Health special meeting Tuesday, November 29th, 2022, 5 p.m. This is a public meeting being recorded for cable broadcast and internet posting on www.mash.gov and YouTube. At this time, I'd like to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States
of America
and
and
to the
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm Barbara Catavia, Board Chairwoman. This is Nicole Mello, member, and Paul Pacheco, our new member. At this time, let's enter with new business. A is review, discuss, act 1101 Tremont Street, design review, process and design comments.
All right, this is a plan for new construction that was submitted to this office. I reviewed it and submitted a comment letter. This is the comment letter. You need a copy of it, Mark, or you?
Got it. Yes, I got it.
Um, and Mr. Roberts, the engineer who's here present, sent us a letter asking to meet with the Board of Health to discuss the design review process and my review comments for this site. So he asked to be on this agenda, so I put him first on today's agenda.
You have another set of plans?
Oh, yeah, we have plans. Like, Paul, did you want us to? Did you want to?
You're good.
Status of this, right?
Oh, no. Oh, the plan is, this is where it's at. Just, I submitted this letter and, he asked to be on the meeting. So I
Okay,
think we need to turn it over to Ms. Roberts.
okay, so who's speaking on this?
Myself, Ms. Chair,
Could you?
Mark Rock.
Over
No,
there, over
no,
there. Okay, fine.
Are we okay?
Yeah.
You can stay there.
Usually if the microphone would work, that'd be it.
Start again. Good evening, Mr. Chair. My name is Mark Rodericks from Analysis and Design Engineering. Licensed professional engineer. I've been engaged in the design of on-site sewage disposal systems for 30+ years right now. Dayton, River, Westport, Dartmouth, the areas. And I asked for some time with the board, and I appreciate your time to discuss the design and review process in general, and specifically the comments associated with the design plan for 1101 Tremont Street. Owners of that property are Paul and Susan Sylvia. It's a new construction site, as Todd said, 3-family, single-family house.
3-bedroom.
3-bedroom. Yeah. Sorry, yes, pardon me, 3-bedroom, single-family house on Tremont Street. I'd like to start by briefly highlighting the design process and then the review process associated with this particular lot with some history. fitted with other reviews in town. First off, part of the design process, Board of Health Director requested that additional perk testing be conducted on the property. The requirements for new construction are to have a total of 4 deep observation holes and 2 percolation tests. These perks were done in 2005, but there were additional test pits required. I contacted the Board of Health and submitted an application for those 2 additional deep observation holes to the Board of Health on 14th of June. Eventually, I was received a schedule and got out there with Todd and did a test pits on the 20th of July. That was 36 days from the time of request before we were able to get that done. During the subsequent to that, during the design process, I reached out to the Board of Health to discuss some issues that I was having and challenges associated with the soil absorption system grading, use of poly barrier, et cetera, which is one of the comments on this plan. I ultimately was able to speak to Todd to provide some guidance of what he thought he would like to see with regard to that grading off to the adjacent property. The plans were hand delivered to the Board of Health on the 16th of August. And I received comments from the Board of Health on the 18th of October. That's 63 days after submittal of the plans. And that ultimately brings us to tonight and my request to meet with the board. That's 105 days since submittal. As a matter of history, a similar situation for a repair plan on Maple Street, 1551 Maple Street. Plans were delivered to the Board of Health on the 1st of September of 2021. Queried the Board of Health in 6 October regarding status of review. Ultimately, after some discussion and phone calls with Todd on the 16th of October, I provided back to Todd some information associated with the vendor's approval of the IA system. After he asked that I do some review of my math associated with the design. Ultimately, I met with the Board of Health to discuss that design on the 18th of November. That was 78 days following submittal of plans. As-built was delivered on the 29th of March. It was rejected for some issues with more swing ties. And the revised as-built was delivered on the 12th of April, which was after the property had transferred title to the new owners. And the winter had gone by, preventing the installation of the system in the off-season prior to title transfer. So there's a bit of a history here with the time it takes to try to get plans through that. I wanted to make that clear that this is not an isolated matter in my perspective.
This system you're talking about right here, Maple Street? Was that a normal system?
It was an IA system. This is a conventional system on this new construction. There was no need for IA.
Mhm.
IA is innovative alternative. So in that case, you had some stuff in the septic tank to enhance the nitrogen removal.
It was a pre-treatment system that allowed the reduction of total suspended solids, BODs, and most importantly, perhaps nitrogen on the system. That does allow for some reductions in vertical setback, the water table, et cetera. Which given the lot was the way I chose to pursue that design. With respect to the comments provided for the 3-bedroom single-family house new construction at 1101 Tremont Street, Todd provided me 4 comments for my consideration. Again, that was done on, I want to get that right.
October 18th.
October 18th. Thank you, Todd. That was the 18th of October that email was delivered to me by Todd. The first of the 4 comments is the groundwater elevation should be the same for the active and reserve areas. If you're not familiar with the reserve area, it's just a notional area that we set aside to make sure there are no structures.
I've been putting leaching fields for almost 50 years.
Oh, good, good. So I won't.
Oh, no, you can.
No.
I won't.
Please keep explaining.
The least knowledgeable in this, so I do appreciate it.
Okay, so I don't want to back up that I don't need to, so I'll
No, thank you.
try to curb my thoughts. So in my review of that, I see the comment, this is no groundwater elevation should be the groundwater elevation should be the same for the active and reserve areas. I do not know why that's the case. There's no reference to Title V non-compliance in the review comment, as I would expect to see for compliance with Title V. There were 3 test pits that were excavated on this site, 2 of which were mine that had a groundwater table of 28 inches. The fourth, I should say, of those test pits was at an elevation recorded of 30 inches. And as part of my design, when I established the elevation of the system, I held the 28-inch groundwater table elevation, which was the shallowest of all of the pits. And I measured that down from the highest point below the proposed soil absorption system, which is a rather common practice in terms of establishing high water table when soil absorption systems are laid out. The water table for test pit number S1 that I conducted was 88.9. Test pit S2 in the area of the reserve was 89.2. My design was at 89.0, which is 0.2 inches lower than what Todd had suggested that I put at. That's 2.4 inches, 2.5 inches lower. So I did not feel comfortable with modifying this because there was no reference to Title V non-compliance. And again, my design practices have been consistent and are consistent that that's the way I have been, and most of my peers go about establishing high water table in the area of a soil absorption system versus placing all high water tables at the same elevation as proposed. Comment number 2, the remove and replace is denoted as 85.6 maximum. And the bottom of the test pit of number 73B was at 82. 4 feet of suitable material would set the bottom of the excavation at 86.0, whereas I had it set at 85.6. Bottom of excavation 0.4 higher than what I proposed, was recommended by Todd as a review comment. Again, I don't see any reference to Title V non-compliance in the review comments. The bottom of the excavation as a common practice was set to lie within the elevation of the perk testing that was done. And the proposal that I have here on the plan was that we would excavate down to elevation 85.6 into the elevation where the primary test pit perk test was located. And that 4 feet of naturally occurring material that was established as denoted by Todd, from my point of view, was to establish that there was no ledge or impervious material below for some 4 feet. Septic sand was proposed to replace the A, B, and a portion of the C horizon, and is an appropriate design practice, not uncommon and not outside of any compliance for Title V regulation. So again, as I said, we've got in Delta that Todd wanted the bottom of excavation to be some 5 inches or so higher than I had proposed it. And then further, I note that test pit S1 had an elevation of 81.2. 4 feet above that would still put me at 85.2, and 85.6 is where I proposed bottom of excavation B for that particular primary soil absorption system. I think perhaps most importantly of the 4 comments, comment number 3 addressed the grading off to the side property line and the diversion of flow off of abutting property. The comment reads, because the toe of the slope is not 5 feet from the property line, you're proposing a swale. The swale does not appear adequate to adequately direct runoff away from the adjacent property. The invert of the swale is proposed at 92, but the contour of the abutting property is also at 92, which is accurate. Please either rotate the system parallel to the property line on this, or slide the system away from the property line to allow adequate space to construct the swale. Todd recommends better definition of the swale should be provided, given the crisscrossing of existing elevation 92 contour and the proposed 92 contour on the plan of record. So my response is that the situation was created as a result of the perk locations that were originally done back in 2005, being only 10 feet away from that property line where we've got grading concerns. Both Todd and I did. And that the Board of Health was desiring to have the poly barrier set at an offset of 10 feet from the soil absorption system. So that was the source of my wanting to have a discussion with Todd prior to the submittal of plans. I further note that the placement of a poly barrier 5 feet off, generally around the overdig, is a rather common practice that's been pursued by myself and peers in the design world for many years. And I point back that the 2015 design of lot number 1 on one side of the property had a poly barrier set at 5 feet off the system at the perimeter of the overdig. And that plan was approved by Mr. Bernard, the consultant to the town. And prior to that, in 2014, the poly barrier was also set for lot 3, which happens to be the lot where we're discussing grading. And that also showed a poly barrier set at 5 feet off. So a rather unique situation here is wanting to have the poly barrier set 10 feet versus 5 feet off the SES, which in fact pushed me a little closer to the property line. And that was the source of the discussions that I was having with Todd. There's no specific reference in Title V proper that discusses poly barriers and impervious barriers for the design. However, the state does have a guidelines that dates back to 2004 for the design and construction of poly barriers and retaining walls. Design engineer finds that the swale along the property line, which is approximately 15 feet long, where the grade of the abutter is 92. And I find that offset of the property line where the grading proposed goes down to elevation 92 and meets up with the grading from the abutting property down to that property line. And that is at an elevation of 92. The rotating of the system to be parallel to the property line in question, I believe, creates an even longer swale zone of getting separation between the sloping toe of the soil absorption system and the property line. And also sliding the soil absorption system further away from the property line further increases the setback of the perk test of record for that system, the primary system, to more than 10 feet, which is one of the criteria that I was discussed with Todd earlier about wanting to keep the system at least within 10 feet of the primary perk test. So sliding it further into the middle of the property would certainly have alleviated the situation, no question, but then it puts into some doubt the location of the perk testing design of record for the primary system and the location of the soil absorption system. Poly barrier to 5 feet off the soil absorption system around the perimeter of the overdig would have resolved the problem and given us the additional 5 feet we need for toe of slope. Lastly, the bottom of the swale that I have set at a contour of 92.0 is clear to me and also clear to the installing contractor as a course of event to define the swale. And certainly I feel that it adequately prevents any stormwater flow from going up gradient to the abutting property. Item number 4 of the comments was that I should post the distances from the reserve area to the rear property line and the active system to the westerly property line. So the distance to the reserve area of the notional reserve area located at the rear property is not shown, which is correct. I did not show that on my plan, but I do note that item number 16, note 16 on my plan does state that the soil absorption system shall be a minimum of 10 feet from property lines. And then with respect to the second item, sub item in this of the active system setback to the westerly property line, that distance is noted on the plan as plus or minus 20 feet, and it is shown on the plan. So in general, my comments are here to mostly say that these review comments are unusual in that they don't specifically reference Title V noncompliance. And I believe it's the purpose of the Board of Health to review plans with respect to compliance with Title V and the local bylaws of the town of Dayton. The plan reflects, I believe this plan and these comments reflect more of a Board of Health design or design preference versus that of the design engineer, in this case, myself. And these comments have been shared and sentiments have been shared by my peers in terms of aiming to meet compliance and get approved plans through Dayton. And that being code compliance versus design preferences. I point out to the Bernard email, going back to the 2015 abutting property review, in which the review comments that came back from Mr. Bernard state reviewed for compliance with Title V and local Dayton Board of Health regulations. So I've begun to develop a reluctance to engage in further Dayton work because it's so difficult, I feel, to try to get plans completed, approved, and support my customer base here in Dayton in a timely fashion. Or as an alternative, as some of my peers have discussed with me, that they've actually increased the cost of the design work in Dayton relative to other towns because of the time and complexities associated with design reviews and getting plans approved. I've got 30 years of experience in the design field of on-site sewage disposal systems, and rarely are my plans rejected. But in Dayton, I don't recall a single pass plan in the recent years. And as a result of these design reviews and comments, that adds an additional $75 fee in most cases to those plan reviews. That's all I have, Ms. Chair.
It's a lot to take in.
Sure is. It's a lot for me to try to put on paper for today's meeting.
But I can also say very few towns, and I've done about 8 towns installations. I'm also an installer and a Title V inspector. And very, very, very few times we put plans in and they don't come back with some comment. Very few. So you shouldn't be surprised about it. Anything to say, Mrs. Mellon?
I just wanted to touch on, you gave a lot of dates, amount of time that it took for things to come back to you. Apologize for that. If you see on our agenda, we are working on restructuring the health department. We are looking to make this better. We're aware that we have some challenges and that they are historically been occurring, but we are looking to do better, and I apologize for that.
Mr. Pacheco?
I think Nicole pretty much said it all.
Okay.
Have that on the agenda. What do you want from us tonight?
Well, first, what I do not want to do is I do not want to revise plans at additional time and expense to my customer for matters that I feel are not warranted in terms of them not being in compliance with Title V. So I thought it would be worth with Todd here just to present this to the board to discuss how we can make perhaps strides, collaboratively make strides to bring about a more timely and consistent plan review and approval process consistent with Title V and your local Board of Health regulations. So
That's only going to be if we get more help here.
that would be.
Fine, charge the selectmen.
And the Board of Health restructuring matter is a matter that I don't wish to directly participate in, but I do understand your comment that getting more help and some relief for Todd is on your agenda. I can, I'm aware of that topic being discussed. In fact, I see it on the agenda today as well.
Yeah, we're slammed. We are slammed. And this is a lot to take into, and I really do want to go over it. Then come to some recommendation. I really have to look at it. It's way too much to look at tonight and take into consideration. Could I have a copy of what you just related to us?
Yes,
Great.
yes. I'll send it over to the Board of Health office via email. I'll send it over to Rosalind when I return home tonight. I can.
Sure, so we can go over everything.
That would be fine.
And what is the status now of this property?
the best of my knowledge, there's been no activity associated with the installation of the on-site sewage disposal system. I know the property is being prepared for foundation right now.
It has a foundation in it. Does it have a building permit?
Yes, it does,
How did that happen?
because I issued it.
Without this?
Yep, I did.
Is that usual?
It's unusual, and it's a situation that your board has put me in, and I don't appreciate it.
No, we didn't put you,
No, you have.
we didn't put you in that. You could have spoken to,
Ms. Chairwoman.
you could have spoken to me.
Failed to process plans in a timely manner. So you have allowed this to happen. I have acted.
I have allowed it to happen.
You're the chairwoman, you're responsible.
No, listen, when I got here, people were ready to leave because no one was helping us out. No one was talking to us for 2 years. The selectmen would not meet with us.
Listen,
And within a month, excuse me, I've got the floor. Within a month, we started talking, and that's been an ongoing for months now. You know it as well as I and everybody else here.
but the taxpayer was left aside because
The taxpayer left aside.
the timelines were discussed tonight. That's inexcusable.
It's not inexcusable when there are a lot of priorities going on here.
You don't think when I took over my department, there were similar problems with efficiency? I acted the minute I came in to make sure things were done.
Well, I'm trying to act the way I'm doing it too.
Well, it hasn't made much, we haven't had any progress.
We haven't.
No,
Well, yeah, it's kind of hard when people are going against you and they just don't want to help.
we have always worked together as a team. The problem is the Board
Have.
of Health has not.
This is not a team right here. When you issue a building permit and don't acknowledge us,
You realize that the actions or inactions, I should say, from the Board of Health has caused stress, undoing harm,
I'm the one that has stress.
and cost people money in this town because of mortgage rates rising. You have a timeline that you need to follow to get plans out. I have a 30-day timeline to process a building permit. I cannot miss that target because of the problems within the Board of Health.
We have one person doing everything and have a drought going on and is slammed by everyone. And this is not a repair. A repair, they're done in timely manner. When it's new project, a new project, you're going to tell me that it's an emergency.
Do you know how long plan reviews used to take Mr. Bernard when he was contracted out for the town? No, I'm asking you a question. Do you know how long?
I wasn't privy to that.
Hey, days. The plan went out and within days it came back.
Fine, and we just doing everything else down at the bottom.
At what point, when the Board of Health realized that there was a problem reviewing plans, should they not have explored that option?
We tried to get someone. There's no money, we were told. We've tried and tried and tried.
All I hear is excuses. I don't
It's
hear.
not excuses.
It is an excuse.
It is not an excuse. We have tried, I've been there almost every week, except when I had a heart operation. It was very, very sick, trying to meet with the town administrator, trying to find ways of begging for money for assistance here and have gotten nothing.
I went through.
All excuses, all excuses.
It is.
Right, it is.
I went through the same problem with my department, yet I was able to produce. How is it that I was able to get things done and you're not?
Because it's a different department, Mr. Agia.
Oh, okay.
Total different.
But you realize,
Health, excuse me. The Board of Health. Where is that stupid thing? Animal welfare, which is gone. Emergency prep, food services, stormwater, septic, solid waste, which is the transfer station. We're responsible for all of it. Housing, transfer station, public health, nursing homes, schools, mosquitoes. And plus the other meetings. And you have all this too, right? All of it.
no idea what I'm responsible for. I have 13 appointments in this town, but this isn't about me. This is about the problem.
Like you have 13 appointments because you have plenty of time to do them all.
No, I'm good at time management. That's what I'm,
And you're saying the Board of Health isn't? When you have to be at a perk test and sometimes it takes 4 and 5, 6 hours?
The Board of Health isn't under my purview, so I'm not going to comment on what I think the problems with.
You have been commenting right along. Not only here, other places, and that's fine. You can
Every-
comment all you want.
Everything I've said publicly, and I stand by those comments. This is all caused from mismanagement.
And this is a sample, right? That you're using him as a sample.
Using him for anything. I'm not using him for anything. He came under his own free will. He's a grown person. These are legitimate problems that aren't isolated.
They're legitimate problems. We'll handle them.
They're all.
Talk about them.
Everywhere. I congratulate Mr. Rogers for coming to the board. And it's a.
We could get it all done too if we had more help instead of one person doing all this work.
I'm the only full-time employee in my department. How do I get it all done? Am I some miracle worker, Superman? No, I manage my department properly. I have the staff that the department can support, and I get the work done. People wait hours, maybe days for me,
You have,
months.
you have the staff that the department supports.
Yes, I do.
We will too.
When?
We have to get it okay. They have to find
Time.
money.
In the meantime,
Finding the money for everything else in this
in
town.
the meantime, the taxpayers, the residents of this town are dealing with the hardship because we are not acting.
I totally agree with you. That's why I've been begging and talking to the selectmen and talking to the town administrator. Begging, where can we get this? How can we even get a part-time helper? A part-time helper to do filing work and to download things that have to be done for the state. We can't even get that from them.
So you're saying that the administration causes the issue, not the Board of Health?
I'm saying the Board of Health needs people here. We need bodies.
Okay. I'm not gonna
With
fix the Board of Health's problems, because as I said, you don't work for me. I'm not in control of the Board of Health or its subordinates. However, you can operate business much differently and get more work done without gobs of money that you seem to be lacking.
No, I'm not lacking money. I'm lacking people in this town.
Well, it costs money.
That's right, but it's going every other place except to the Board of Health.
Okay. You know what user base costs are? User base costing is?
But no, I don't.
No.
Sorry, I'm just
Right.
not privy to that.
Right. Everything in my department is user-based, meaning if you need the service from my department, you pay for it. That's how I pay.
He's complaining about coming back $75 and you want us to raise the prices?
I'm not gonna.
Are in process of,
He's complaining about $75 because it took 60 days to review the plan. Now I have to pay another 75 to re-review it. That's what he's complaining about. And again, I'm not speaking for him, but that's what I heard tonight. If you're gonna fix the issue, fix the issue. You can't ask for more people, more staff without having a way to pay for it. In the meantime, everyone suffers.
so your suggestion is to raise all the prices for everybody so we can get a staff?
I'm not saying that at all.
Because the town general fund budget won't help us,
I'm saying that
that the money's going other places.
I'm saying that if there's a way to get a plan reviewed and pass that along through to the person who needs the plan review, then that should be done. But it should be done in days, not months.
So do you want him to take these plans out to, when he's sitting out there doing perk tests?
I don't, I'm not suggesting
That
anything.
people are calling up and complaining about that too?
I'm not suggesting anything.
Well, that's what it sounds
Oh,
like.
I don't get paid.
Want it done immediately, and so something has to give.
You think this is okay? 63 days is
I
okay?
don't think it's okay. Can you get it through your head? Why do you think from day one I've been here, I've been up there trying to talk to them, begging. I had to put my foot down when they kept canceling meetings to meet with us.
In respect.
That's not true?
In respect to Mark, who has come with these, I'll call them complaints. I don't know if they're complaints. What we're talking about is very relevant, but I do want to get back to him.
I agree. So if you want my comment on that, I understand you want to take it under advisement. But there's only 2 engineers and 3 soil evaluators in this room. And none of them are sitting up there. So what is taking this under advisement going to do?
Oh,
It's going to confer with the
I'm not,
agent.
I will not,
Is-
I will not vote for passing it tonight. Definitely not.
But I need to understand.
Take it under advisement.
I need to understand the process. I really do, because if nobody on the board has the credentials to,
Then I will find someone that has the credentials.
but we don't have anybody on the payroll. We start.
I have to have somebody on the payroll.
Technically, my assistant, Matt Tanis, is capable of reviewing septic plans. He's a registered sanitarian.
Great. Then we'll
Right.
contact
And-
Spanish.
Half, right?
He's only done whatever, 5 or 10 inspections out of the 15, so you could probably look at the plan with the money
Great.
we have in the budget,
Great, that's great.
but it's gonna mean more time.
Well, I was just gonna ask, I don't want this gentleman to leave without some kind of time frame that we are going to make sure that we're on.
I got a question,
Yes,
Mr. Rogers. You noted the letter that Todd wrote. But you said your main concern was the time limit. And I agree, we all agree it's on the agenda, we're gonna try to work on that. However, it's water over the dam right now. Those days already gone by.
Yes, sir.
Where does the plan sit with you now? Are they approved? Can you go to?
No, the plan, subsequent to the comments received from Todd, I did not readdress the revisions of the plans and resubmit the plans because I wasn't comfortable with the comments as them requiring to be modified.
Okay.
And again, Madam Chair, 2 things. First off, my intent is not to come here to get involved with Board of Health restructuring or administrative matters within the town. My objective here, if I could generalize, is to bring this information to the board in pursuit of a more timely and collaborative process of design reviews, working collaboratively with the Director of Health in subsequent designs. There are projects on my plate in Dayton that are forthcoming, and my objectives here after this general process that I described to you tonight for 1101 Tremont Street has pretty much been the norm over the past couple of years in my working with Todd. So my objective again is to bring this to your attention. Not only most importantly in trying to move things through in a timely fashion, which we have these discussions routinely when I'm on a perk with Todd or whatever, but also to try to work towards a better process that would differentiate between design preferences and code compliance in the review process. And that's a general statement that I'm not ashamed to say to the board.
Now, are you saying that, as far as you're concerned, that this plan meets all Title V?
Yes.
One thing I'm concerned,
Yeah, there's a distance missing on a reserve area, but other than that, I'm saying, yes, I do believe that I'm in compliance with Title V. There was reluctance on my part to revise the plans to meet the desires and submit in accordance with the comments.
now,
And that's not unique to this case. There are many situations that I have discussions with Todd about design preferences versus code compliance, sir.
no, I understand that. And we are working on going to address those issues. I can show you that.
Appreciate
My
that.
concern is not holding you up on your plan right now.
Okay,
And I do know, I drove by the neighbor's property. This into this property.
it goes right to the toe. Yes, it does. The grading of the adjacent property lot 3 does grade right down to the property line, which is pinned and staked out property.
Doesn't go past the property.
It goes pretty much right down to it, more or less. You talked about the crisscrossings of some contours, but for the most part, the abutter grading
But now,
right up to the property line and then slopes down. Rather,
now correct me if I'm wrong, their septic system in the neighbor's house is more towards the street, parallel with where the house is gonna be.
it's a little more to the middle of their property.
But it looks on the plan that the leach area that you have here is set back further.
Yeah, they're about parallel off the street to each other, sir. They're about parallel to each other. It might be,
Off the street, yeah.
yeah, it's a little bit, the abutting property, the septic is slightly closer to the street, but not much.
Yeah, because I went by there today and where they have the forms of the foundation. It looks like that's where the slope is right there, right across from where the house is.
Yes,
The further you go back, where you're going back to this leach field, it kind of levels off.
yes. Yes, that is correct, sir. In fact, the topographical survey that was performed is a contemporary survey that is not legacy from days gone by, so that does reflect the changes. And the original work was done by myself and the land surveyor in the 2013, 2014 timeframe to today. So those are relatively accurate contemporary grading. There is more grading than proposed on lot number 3, the abutters lot, approaching the property line than per the plan of record.
Now, it's none of our business, but I'm just curious, do you know what's gonna happen with that slope from the neighbor's yard going onto this property?
I'm sorry, repeat
That
that.
slope that's going from the neighbor's property onto this property.
Mhm.
Do you have any idea what's gonna happen with that? Is it gonna stay there? I mean,
Actually, the proposed grading schedule shows that we pretty much, I'm trying to put that 92 elevation proposed contour parallel to that property line so that the toe of the grading from the abutter property is dying out, if you will, at the property line at 92, where the toe of the proposed soil absorption system slopes out at grade 92. And hence, Todd's comment is not illegitimate, saying there's a little ambiguity in it and seeking more detail. That was the intent of the swale, was to capture the toe of the slope from the abutter's property, approximately at the property line, and the toe of the slope from the soil absorption system, so that they would meet at an elevation of 92, which would prevent water from going in either direction, uphill to the abutting property or uphill, of course, to the soil absorption system.
So the swale's not gonna run the water off anywhere?
It's going to gradually and slowly run it off to the southwest of the property.
Is that the rear?
Yes, sir, Todd.
And to the
I gave all my plans away.
north.
What's the street?
East, this way. The other property. They are higher than this property also, aren't they? They're at 95.
Yeah, the elevations do generally increase as you're moving to the east in terms of topographical survey. That is
So they're both, so this land is here and both properties are up here. Right?
that is correct.
I can see it's going off to the back.
Slightly.
90, 89, 88, 87.
I would say surface flow direction is to the northeast. I'm sorry, the northwest, to the back right of the
Mhm, mhm.
slightly. So yes.
Madam Chair.
Yes, I'm sorry, Todd.
I'm gonna show one more question. Mr. Rogers, would you mind coming up here to? Like show you something?
Happy to.
So there's the elevation 210. Which is,
Yeah, this is elevation 93.
right, but now it goes to 210.
No, that's the property line dimension. That's the bearing of the property line.
Oh, okay.
210.
But now, when you see the picture here. See where, I'm saying, there's a septic system. It slopes down. And here is the foundation. So it looks to me like their septic system is here.
That is correct. It is about, there's the structure. So the leaching system.
It was
or the
behind the
abutter
house,
is-
right?
is Right, that back corner, right over here, sir, yes.
No, this is the street over here. So,
Yes.
so that's here, but your system is going to be up here. So there's two systems aren't going to be side by side.
Now is here versus here.
No, I'm saying,
You can't see it, of course, but this is the existing structure on lot number 3. And the septic system is in this area right over here.
okay,
So they're essentially the same setback from the street.
okay.
And the swale that has been the topic of our discussion, this is the area right over here, sir.
Yeah.
Where we're looking at the swale But this is existing contour 92 over here, and this is the proposed contour of 92. So this right here is the region where we've got the toe from the abutting property and the toe of the slope from the soil absorption system. That's about a 15-foot length, and then that distance begins to increase as you move forward.
Now, right now, the toe of the neighbor system
Is right here.
goes over the property line.
Well, yeah, in fact, there is a little bit of a crisscrossing where it actually permeates out.
Right.
And the effect over there was to flatten that area out to the proposed 92
Right.
elevation.
Right.
Which is my solution to configuring the swale. When I have a perk test that's located just 10 feet off the property line. And my desire to try to maintain at least 10 feet. Generally, we do 5.
Yeah.
Kind of, generally, we feel comfortable in a test pit that's located within 5 feet or in the overdig, generally, if you will.
Yeah, okay. Now, when you cut this to 92. Shelter, which is the neighbor's responsibility because.
Well, this is elevation 92. So this is going to be a bit lower in elevation because this is elevation 92 now.
But what is it at the property line?
Well, I would call it somewhere on the order of 92.
You see,
I've blown it up to a 10
Oh.
scale. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh, there you go. Much
Because
easier.
I was,
I can't see where the exact property line is. You can see this, that's the top of the system. Slopes down. So it looks like it goes quite a bit onto this.
Yeah,
property.
there is, this over here, it could be the consequence of some finished grading from lot number 3. This is the existing 92 swale, so the property does in fact have a slope that begins to permeate into the subject property at 1101. And my intent would be to cut that down a little bit, which would flatten this area over here. Now that would begin of an upslope towards the abutters property, but there is grade. Can't say that it was done as it was finished grading or legacy of the existing grades, but there is a little bit of grade over here that the intent was to strip that.
Right,
down.
so this will all be brought down to the same level.
Yes, down to 92, yes.
And then you'll have the proper slope.
Yes, yes, this is a 3-to-1 slope. There's conventional 3-to-1 slope from the top of the system.
And what are you supposed to be 5 feet off the property?
Generally, the toe of the slope is to be 5 feet, and if we cannot
5
maintain.
feet, 5 feet away from.
Property
the
line.
line. But we got a neighbor that's probably 5 feet over.
So he's right on it, let's say, yes, which is what created the situation,
Right.
and this of drainage of surface water flow that Todd was concerned with.
Okay, so Todd, do you have any big problem with the way that it is here?
big problem may not be the right word. I don't think big is the right word. I'm concerned that I feel. Like, for example, like right here, this is about elevation 91.9 currently. And so if you're running the 92 contour in here, we're gonna have a puddle. That's what I meant by crisscrossing. The 92 contour from the neighbor comes across the property line and then goes in two directions at once, which you can't do. So that's why I'm afraid we're gonna have some puddling in this area, but it's, to me, it's minorly, it's easy to correct, and that's
Yeah,
why it's not a
no.
big problem.
Cutting this down, like Roger said, would that correct the problem? Because this landowner has all the right to grade that right.
Yes, yes. And the fractions of grading it up, if you will, to the abutting property line is something that I have confidence that on site we can explore, both Todd and myself, because we do look at finished grades to make sure that we won't have any ponding or puddling. But most importantly, what I'm confident in is surface water is not going to flow uphill to the abutting property,
Right,
which is the ultimate concern is flow off of property.
right.
Hence the 5 feet from toe.
But we're also very concerned with having the septic system near the test pits that were done instead of being away from them, which is how this all started. So,
So what can we do tonight to resolve this?
well, as I was about to say, so if you want to sit down, you can sit down again, I think. So first off, yes, he shouldn't have to wait that long for plan reviews. I am not gonna argue, I'm embarrassed by it. It never should have taken that long. It did happen to coincide with when we got all the perk applications and all that, and I also took a couple of weeks of vacation in there, which didn't help, but 63 days is unacceptable. 13 days is unacceptable, so, but we'll set that aside for now. I take it as an apology that, and obviously we're gonna discuss it further for how we're gonna resolve it. But I guess in an effort to move him forward, and instead of sending out for another review and all the rest of it, what I am thinking is if we took. And I could quote the sections of the regs, and yes, in my letter, should I have quoted the sections of the reg, but this wasn't a formal letter, it was just an email, so it was just meant to be informal. But so, I mean, we could take a red pen right now and mark on the plan, you know, different things. In not, I don't want to, let's say, elaborate on these too much, but the active and reserve areas. So the reserve area is meant to be the area where if the active system fails, you can just build the reserve area immediately. Well, if the reserve area is, the groundwater reserve area is 2 inches higher than the active area, you can't necessarily get there, which is why we usually do the same elevation for the active and reserve, unless you've got some kind of major elevation difference. But remove and replace note, you know, again, if he's amenable to it, you know, we can just take a red pen, cross out the 85.6 and write an 86. I do believe we need 4 feet of suitable material, and I can quote the sections of the regs for all of these if we want to get into it. But this isn't meant to be I'm right, he's wrong. This is meant to be, how do we get to where we're going?
Yeah.
Next, the third comment about this property line, and he's commenting on the impervious barrier. Title V requires the impervious barrier, it says should be at least 10 feet. So it's a should, it's not a shall. But Dayton passed a regulation, a Board of Health regulation saying the barrier has to be 10 feet from the system. So it's 10 feet. However, the board could grant a waiver from that requirement. Because we're trying to stay over the test pits that were done before him, there's a reason for his waiver, and we could drop it to 7 feet. Or 5 feet, or whatever you want to do, and that would give them the room to get the toe of the slope to be 5 feet off the property line and make it work. Posting the distance to the reserve area of the property line, you could take the red crayon right now and say 10-foot minimum and be done with that. So, yes, the board could tonight, again, if Mark is agreeable to this, I mean, and this is usually how it goes, but I don't have the authority to grant the waiver on the 10-foot barrier. That's something that the board, I think, has to weigh in on if that's something you're willing to do. And we could get to an approval tonight. If that's where, if everybody's amenable to it. I don't want to, you know, speak for him. I'm just throwing it out.
What would you like? In your comments?
I think 2/10 of an inch in the changes in elevations for establishing height of system would not create a problem with citing a 2/10, couple inches to get a gravity flow system into the reserve area. I do not think that the comment as written is accurate at all, with no reference to Title V saying that they should both be the same. I can see the point that Todd makes about the design process of maintaining that, so that in the future, if we need a repair, that area would be good, but I'm not concerned that 2/10 is going to create a flow problem where I would require a pump chamber, for instance, in this situation.
Right.
But if that reserve area was sited some 3 feet below the primary area, I certainly wouldn't want to hold a water table at a 3-foot lower elevation at 28 inches. So I think the comment in general does not, to me, it just creates yet another case where there's a desire or a comment by the board that I'm saying, why is that? Tell me where I did not comply with a requirement. The poly barrier at 10 feet should be that is correct, and that is in the 2004 guidance, should be at least 10 feet is true. I am not aware of any in the bylaws that it says shall be 10 feet. I am not aware of that, not. So that would be a legitimate citing of your bylaw says it shall be.
But I didn't put that in this letter, so that's why.
Okay, so and again, that process of that practice of putting, and I have worked it in the past where we put polys at 10 feet because I know that's what Todd wanted, not understanding that it was in fact in his bylaw.
Well, we'll put in there this year.
Oh, well, could have missed it. Which, Mark, you have a bylaw that says you shall. You didn't comply here.
Right.
If I would have done it at 5 feet, but you know, the practice that I have seen throughout the local areas is that poly barrier is installed at the perimeter of the overday. I do think that if we could have worked at it in our discussions on the phone prior to submittal of the plans that says, given the situation of proximity of test pit, the system, that you should apply for a new construction waiver and try to give me, 7 feet and try to get that toe of the slope to work. But that's not how it was discussed. And then, so I'm amenable to just moving along. I do not want to go through any rigorous redesign of the system. But I do think that if there was some pen and ink stuff that we could do to get it to the liking of the Board of Health, that would be appreciated by myself.
Yeah, well, that's what I'd like to do tonight, if we could get it so that we all agree. You can move on, homeowner can move on. And we get it done.
And I do think we can proceed with caution and review, on-site field review, Todd, when it comes time to the finished grading, to make sure that the grading schedule has the appropriate sloping to discourage any flow onto the abutting property. And I'm confident that that can occur. I am confident that that can happen so that we can dismiss of surface water puddling, or flow to abutting property.
So Todd, what do you think?
Well, like I said, if you take out the red pen and he puts the 10-foot minimum to the rear property line. Changes the bottom excavation to 86 instead of 85.
Yep, I don't want to do that. There's nothing that says you can't put septic sand below that 4 foot of naturally occurring. There is nothing in there, and I'm quite confident in Title V. I don't know.
240 section 1 requires 4 feet of suitable material beneath the system. So if you remove that,
There is 4 feet of suitable material below the system.
you're referring to the septic sand as suitable material,
I'm referring to what's there right now is suitable material.
but you have the bottom of the hole at 82.
Yep.
And if
And
you go to 85.6, that's not 4 feet.
look at the other test pit that's right in the area of the primary, the 073, and that goes down to 8. And I had that in my notes, and that also is at 80. Test pit S1 is 81.2. You referenced the other test pit 73B at 82. I've got a test pit that's at 81.2 plus 4 is 85.2. I'm excavating to 85.6. So I do have 4 feet that's existing there. But if we were excavating inside and we had a pocket of silt loam or clay or a boulder
Or an old test pit.
or something that was not found suitable, we would get rid of it. We would never drop a system on top of it. So that means there are situations that certainly allows, as written in Title V code, that says if there's unsuitable material, that you can excavate it and fill it with septic sand.
Right.
The point of the 4 foot of naturally occurring pervious material, quote unquote, is to avoid the presence of ledge, essentially ledge, which is not naturally occurring pervious material. That's what that 4 foot is all
4
about.
foot's a minimum.
Yes. But I do think that there's the test pit data for that excavation does suggest that there is 4 feet plus of naturally occurring material, which is going to be there even after the bottom of excavation at 85.6. My desire was to remove the transitionary layer between the B and the C horizon and get myself well within to the location of the perk test that was done, which had a very good perk rate, 2 minutes per inch. So I'm not at all uncomfortable with and again, for the sake of 4/10, for 5 inches, I feel that my design provides a better design, a more conservative design, because I am removing that transitionary layer between the B and the C horizon to the extent it exists, which I don't know exactly, and getting me where the perk was done. And I'm replacing it with Title V septic sand.
Now, if a reserve area is gonna need to be used in the future,
Yes,
Will there be another perk test done? Or will be just gone up of what?
Well, that's a gosh darn good question.
Well, right now, our regulations allow them to use the perk tests are good forever. Depending on why it failed, the engineer may wish to dig another perk hole, or the Board of Health agent may ask for it, but it's not required.
So wants to put in 6 inches more, or 5 inches more material.
Septic sand below.
Going below. Which I think that's better system.
Couldn't they, if if you're using the reserve area under a repair situation, couldn't they also ask for a 1-foot waiver to water table?
Yes, they could.
So that brings the water table separation to 3 feet.
It would, but you need a quote unquote hardship for that. And if the hardship is
Right.
because the reserve area is 2 inches higher than the active area, I mean, but whatever.
And it can't be
Yes, it is
without the
allowed.
use of a pump system. Usually that would be the hardship would say,
Right.
hey, if you give me 10 inches of relief to a water table. I don't need to put a pump in.
Right.
Please give us some relief for this much, and then it would avoid the cost and the complexity of a system that would be a pump. But I think in this case, the 2 inches, I could certainly get there. If I was to slide the system over to the reserve, the distance from the tank to the pit would probably be even closer, if you will. Well, not really closer. But I do have, right now, I do have adequate slope. I think that I could get that additional 3% slope, i.e. I could still get a 1%.
If you moved it,
Yes, if I were to go to the reserve area.
Do you have a problem with that, Todd? And putting a little extra sand?
Like I say, I have a problem with the fact that if every design that now comes in from every engineer has a different water table for the active and reserve area, it makes it a little more complicated. It's simpler if they're the same, but he's right. Everything he's saying is correct. In the future, we get a waiver, it can work. It's not about it not working, it's about,
Why does it make it more complicated? If we're on the side of a hill, you said at times it was an extreme.
yes.
It's only talking
For
numbers.
extremes, but if you're out in a flat yard just like this and the water table here is elevation 95 and over there is 94.8, for that 0.2, like, is it worth it? I guess, and now you have 2 different designs. He's got a different size system for these area, but again, that's just a size thing. And so, do I ask him for the specs on how many rows and all that? It's just simpler if everything is the same, but it's not. Yeah,
It's not out of compliance with Title V, it's just not preferable.
well, yeah, you see, and this is Title V just says that the reserve area is meant to be built in, like if the active fails. So define built in. It doesn't define it. It doesn't say that it has to be the same elevation. It doesn't have to be the same size. It doesn't have to be, it can get a separation of water table waiver if the Board of Health allows. So this is that gray area between exactly what it says. It should be at least 10 feet. But it's not now, so it should, but if you say at least 10 feet. You see, and that's typical Title V stuff, which is why we have these discussions. And it's not just Mark, it's all the other engineers, and we have discussions about stuff on a regular basis. Jim and I have them in the office about stuff. So Title V is flawed, and obviously, could I allow it? Would I be okay with it? Yes, I would not lose sleep over this in any way, shape, or form. I don't hold any of this against Mark in any way, because again, to me, this is a good discussion where we both learn and we become better as engineers because of what we're dealing and why we have.
this is the kind of discussion that should have happened a week, 2 weeks ago.
Well, it should have happened in August, is when I should have looked at the plan.
Okay, so now all this time's gone by, you're agreeable,
Well, wait, agreeable to what? Are we gonna go to the barrier at 5 feet? Or are we gonna go to, you're talking just the active and reserve area being different?
I want to talk about every problem that we have so we can resolve it. And
Well, you two meet together.
Well, we're doing it right now.
Yeah.
Okay,
The board has, if we're gonna vote a waiver to 5 feet for the barrier, the board has to vote it tonight. We're not gonna wait another month to vote.
No.
So I'm okay with the reserve area being a different elevation than the active.
Okay.
Yes,
That's the only
that's
thing.
comment number 1. Yeah.
So the only thing we need to do is vote on a waiver of,
If that's what he wants to do, or do you want to stand by what you got?
And what we could do is that would position the poly barrier at the perimeter of the overdig,
Which is standard.
which is
For repairs, but yes.
which is standard, and that would allow us to do finished gradings in the field upon as-built. It will not change the elevation of the system. All it'll do is finish grading.
It'll pull a 3-to-1 slope 5 feet over, so it gives us that 5 feet to the property line.
That will clearly resolve the issue of concerns of ponding or stormwater flow.
And then the distance to the reserve area to the property line, you're okay writing 10 foot minimum?
And it is 10 feet. It's actually 10.1 feet, but it is 10 feet. But I can ink that in right now.
Okay,
So if he changes the barrier being 10 feet off to 5 feet off on the plan and mark that in red and puts the 10-foot minimum to the rear property line, then I'm okay,
And that can be captured on an as-built?
as long as the board votes the waiver. Yeah, because he's marking on the plan in red, so it would all show up on an as-built, yes.
Yep, and that finished
The
grading,
approved plan that the installer gets is all gonna have it on it. He's gonna have to mark his street.
yeah. 5 feet. Consideration of the time this is taken. I want to see you move forward. And you are privy to all of the local regulations that we might have. So I'd like to make the motion that we approve it.
Approve the waiver for the poly barrier being 5 feet off.
Yes.
Yes, I second.
It gets it right in the.
Thank you.
I second it.
Wait, I'd like to have her read that back to me. When you get a chance, Roz.
I have approved without poly barrier being 5 feet.
No, 5 feet off the septic system.
Off a septic system, sorry.
It's quote unquote at the edge of the over. Basic, I'm gonna over dig.
Approve the poly barrier being 5 feet off the septic system. Being located,
Place
installed,
installed, yeah.
What else was there, Todd?
No, that was it. Assuming we're holding the 85.6 for the remove and replace, we're allowing the different groundwaters to be active in reserve.
Yeah,
I'm comfortable with that.
good,
Chair. I am comfortable.
Good.
Chair, thank you. I am comfortable with that.
good.
It also saves a $75 review.
Didn't vote. We
Can't you second what she's reading?
oh, hi.
nope, I'm good, thank you.
You good?
I vote aye.
Aye.
Wait a minute, I didn't ask for a vote yet.
Yes.
Okay, as to the motion that Ross just finished writing. Could I have a vote on it, please?
Aye.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion is passed.
So Todd, what's the next step? You just have to stamp that.
Oh, yeah, as soon as he's done, then I can, well, tomorrow I'll stamp the plans approved and Roz will type in whatever she needs to the installer in there and we can call and let them know that it's ready to go.
All right, good.
Todd, I know you said this email was informal, but going forward, regardless of informal or not, if you could cite the Title V or whatever, whatever, yeah, is the bylaws or whatever that are necessary, that would be helpful.
Sounds like it's more than helpful if it be required.
Okay, second B, review, discuss at transfer station sticker fee.
So B and C kind of go together. The solid waste committee has been discussing transfer station disposal fees. But we have not discussed the sticker fee when we have made the motion to recommend it to the Board of Health before.
What does the sticker be now?
$15. That's a year sticker. It runs from January 1st to December 31st of the calendar year. So solid waste committee met last night, kicked it around, and we have opted to leave the sticker fee at $15 for the year coming up. But right now, because our pink bag program kind of fell off, whatever dissolved, we were allowing people to bring their pink bags to the transfer station for free. They didn't need a transfer station sticker to get in. We have a new vendor, CMRE CMR pay that is gonna be starting pick up on December first, so people will be able to get them picked up at their houses again. So they have an alternative to the transfer station. So you will need a sticker to bring to the transfer station because you have an alternative. They can come up to your house.
Is there any regulation on vehicles will have a sticker on? They're allowed to have the stickers on?
No, just you have to be a resident of the town is all that's in our standards at the moment.
Because I've heard complaints that people that have pickup trucks or 1 ton, they're personal trucks, but they have to have commercial plates. Transfer station doesn't allow commercial plates.
I don't know when that complaint came in because some of the load. It appears the commercial plates are allowed, and that may have been a previous tenant that had that rule, but the current attendant, no, he just looks for your license and you're good to go. Or not even a license, utility bill, tax bill, something that proves you're.
Yep.
So the sticker fee is, we recommend, the solid waste committee is recommending to the Board of Health. That the sticker fee stay at $15, but that you will need a sticker to get in the gate to dispose of anything. Whereas, again, as of right now, it was a temporary thing.
And why did they decide to stay? Is there,
Because the plan was that we keep the sticker price low, more people likely to use the transfer station. And get the fees and the user fees for the disposal, but those costs would cover the cost. I
Mhm.
guess is effectively where it went.
Okay.
Both Mr. Aguirre and Mrs. Davio were at the meeting.
Is there anything that you can go into transfer station and with just a sticker? Not have to pay?
Yes, leaves, brush, grass. Cardboard. Single stream recycling, which is paper, plastic, metal.
Okay,
Those items were all free.
I was just wondering, because it was, I couldn't see even charging a sticker fee, we're gonna charge item that's going in any.
We did discuss whether we should charge fees for.
As long
like
as,
brush or whatever when we get there, but it's at this point in time. We're trying to get a point of sale machine there so we can track how many microwaves are coming in and how many televisions are coming in. So we have a better idea of what's coming in and is the cost for disposing covering those. So it's reevaluating this after, say, 6 months, 2 years of state flood.
I said, somebody's gonna buy a sticker, 1 air conditioner a year. But if there's other free things that they can get, then yes.
So, and again, you'll see both of them here on the agenda. One is the sticker, which the board, the committee voted last night, and the disposal fee, which is the one after that. This board looked at it before, I don't think you were on the board at the time, but, the board looked at it, it's like, they want to put a lot, and everything. So it's like they're gonna be having their third reading, and they need a recommendation from the Board of Health.
it looks like from our meeting with it looked like that wasn't even accurate because it looked like they were going off of, it should have been policy required 3 readings. And not that I didn't think the 3 readings were great because it did get it out there to people, but going forward, I don't know if that's something necessarily that we have to do.
So that was kicked around, I think, after the fact, and different people have brought it up, that it's not a policy, it was just what
Good for transparency,
it is.
but it did hold us back a little bit.
It did.
So maybe not so many readings.
Right, but should the readings have happened here at the Board of Health, and when we were done with it, kicked it to the select. They're working on I'm assuming, they said they were gonna work on a policy, because we're not the only committee that has fees or board that has fees, so.
Right.
But yes, because if you're gonna do it 3 times, we need to know that.
Well, my opinion, that more people pay attention to the selectmen. The selectmen should redo the final readings, not each and every department.
Right.
They're the top dog.
Well, right now, the way it's set up is any fees by any board, any committee. They all have to be approved by the selectmen at a meeting, so they would be brought up at a selectmen.
That's where they should be.
Yes. It's just, should there be the 3 readings at the selectmen or 3 readings at the board? And that's what they're talking about now, and there's gonna be more discussion about that.
And actually, $15 is only a little over $1 every month.
Keep 1 month.
So
That's
it's-
Yeah.
we did, the solid waste committee did with a bunch of other towns, and the average fee is like $35, $45, somewhere in that range, so we're below that, but the $715 is. I don't encourage people to use the.
Yeah, we talked them that we really need a second person there to make sure they're putting everything in the right dumpsters, because if they put 1 sheet of sheet rock and something that's only 150 to a ton. The minute the sheet rock goes in, that whole dumpster is charged double,
Right, yeah.
even though it only has one piece of sheet rock in it. So that's why we need another person in there just to kind of guide them.
The transfer station's a big area and the attendant
Yeah.
can't be constantly moving around. There's people pulling it. So. But we're working on that. So
Yep,
I believe it's being discussed right now that they're gonna use like, that they're gonna bring it to FinCom to try and get money to get the attendance in there now as the second attendant instead of waiting for the fiscal year. So.
yeah. And it's,
If you don't mind, I can take my leave now?
yes, of course.
Hang out and talk about the.
No, leave that little pretty little chart there. Folks, good luck.
Thank you for coming.
Night.
Have a good night.
Take it easy.
Now, did the solid waste committee take into consideration when they adjusted these fees, paying for your tenant,
Paying for what?
an extra attendant?
No, those fees are not included. Right now, we were looking to cover the costs of what the items are, is what it came down to. Again, if we figured out for that 6 months of collecting data and throwing in a second attendant, or whatever, we would have a better idea of where we're at.
Yeah, but we're gonna throw in a second tenant before we raise the fees to cover. the
Well,
second-
right now, we're not making money at the transfer station anyway.
Well, that's what I'm saying,
We're trying to make it so that it does pay for itself.
self-support.
Self-support.
We're trying.
We're getting there.
So if you feel like wasting a Monday night, come visit us, solid waste committee meeting. It's a
It's
good
not
time.
wasting.
But
Nicole came to one.
well, it might be for Paul.
Get that day back.
It may be for Paul. So the lineal plan for the solid waste committee is that with POS data, after what we think would be an appropriate time of 6 months, looking at that data and then come up with a more comprehensive plan on how we can make this strictly a user-based service so that everyone who needs the service or uses the service pays for the service, including the attendance and soft costs. However, right now, we don't have enough data to actually put the numbers on paper for it to make sense. So instead of throwing a dot at the wall, we tried to adjust what we think we had enough data for, which is what you have before you, and then revisit it after the POS is implemented and we're able to get more information. And, you know, I think in transparency, solid waste committee is also going to look at whether or not the transfer station should be done as an enterprise fund, take it completely out of the operating budget for the Board of Health. So there's a very linear plan that is set in motion, but we're going to take a while to get there.
And we don't actually have the end there. We're still
don't.
working on what we want the end thing to be.
No, I'm even saying, I know you don't want to be throwing dots, but we already know that these prices are not gonna cover
Right.
the other tenant. So we
Correct.
they took that into, and I'm not saying they
Right.
don't,
But a lot of thought went into those fee increases or changes.
And research.
And yeah, because we didn't want to scare people away from the transfer station. And then two, we wanted to make sure that if we brought a fee change to you and subsequently the Board of Selectmen, there was some substance for it. That's why not everything has been changed on there, and we only selected a few out of the list. So I think we'll continue to see an evolution with fee restructuring. Right now, we're trying to stop the bleed, so to speak, whereas we're relying too much on the taxpayer to offset the costs for the transfer station. So
so when you say you don't want to scare people away, what do you mean by that? They're gonna go to NER, pay more?
And throw
or they
it
throw it,
up. Right.
right, or it ends up on the side of the roads.
So the other thing that's happening here
Yeah.
is a lot of these fees have gone up significantly in the last 6 months. So the fees are changing faster than we can keep up with the analysis and changing the fees. So we're
Right.
trying to make an adjustment before it gets too out of.
Right.
And I know that there's still things being dumped on the sides of the roads. Brook Street's
Yeah.
one of them.
Right.
Such as wet mattresses. When the wet mattresses come in, now that doubles the price or triples the price that we have to pay to get rid of them.
Right.
So there's a lot of education component into all this too, so.
There's a lot to it.
We'd have to curb the people dumping on the side of the road. It's trail cameras. They have them now, they take a picture and send it right to phone. Somebody's out there in Brook Street, signs, you're on camera.
There are some restrictions on putting a camera in the street, though. We have to confer with the police department on that.
That's a discussion for another day.
Right, right. But we are on the right track and your questions are warranted. And I appreciate them. But this is not going to get solved overnight.
No,
It's going to take a long time to both vet, do the discovery and then come up with the final plan. So,
the last thing we wanted to do was raise prices. But the town as a whole is losing money because it's costing us so much more to get rid of all this. The prices are going up crazy. So some had to get the money from somewhere.
Right, but like Jim said, to make it self-sufficient.
Exactly.
Because there's no sense, if it's losing money. A lot of taxpayers in town that are contributing to it losing money,
Everything.
and they never use them.
Right, right.
that's why if you go with a user-based fee structure, it would eliminate that. Solid waste curbside pickup is another discussion. They're intermingled, but they need to sort of work somewhat independently. But I think we're on the right track. And I think with more time and our monthly collaborations, which some of us enjoy, we'll get.
You did enjoy it, didn't you? Oh,
Yes,
yeah, you look like it.
I'm a good actress.
Having more excitement coming back.
But on the flip side, the fact that the administration is looking to do a reserve fund transfer to try and help with the problems at the transfer station, to me, seems like a step towards the administration identifying that there are some concerns there or deficiencies. And if you don't have proper oversight at the transfer station, as the chairman alluded to, it can be costing us money just because we don't have enough eyes on what's going on.
Yeah, I just found out about that through Chad this week. I didn't realize that one little piece could change the whole load, the whole dumpster load, and double or triple the price that Dayton has to pay to get rid of it. And I think a lot of people aren't realizing it either. I'm sure they're not really realizing, hey, if I put that piece of sheetrock there, that whole dumpster is going to get doubled or tripled for us to get rid of it. And education, we just have to get it out there and let them know.
Mhm.
And help John up at the transfer station. There's only one guy trying to watch everything.
All right, so what do we need to do for B and C?
Well,
I think, are we finally approving these, or can we finally?
well, yeah, they're two separate ones, but the first one is the
Right.
transfer station sticker fee. So the recommendation from solid waste committee is to keep it at $15, but you need a sticker to get in the gate for any disposal of anything. So the Board of Health now has to make a recommendation to the selectmen. You can make the same, you can do whatever you want. If you want to make the sticker fee $100, you can. This is the recommendation from solid waste committee. So, yeah.
I'll make a motion that we go up with what the solid waste committee suggested, leave it the same.
I'll second that.
May I have a vote? Mrs. Mello?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Pacheco? I vote aye. The motion is passed
So
to recommend to the selectmen motion that the solid waste committee voted on last night.
And I'd also like to make a motion that we act the same on the transfer station disposal fees. That we go with what the solid waste committee says and present it to the selectmen.
I second that.
May I have a vote?
Aye.
Aye.
I vote aye, and the motion is passed on C.
Now, when do these go into effect?
I believe. Well, I don't know when they'll go
I
into
think we said
effect.
January 1st,
Right, well, with the transfer station,
but not the sticker. Well, the sticker's going to say the same anyway, so
right, we just have to get the word, I believe, and don't misquote me, I believe the selectmen are planning on acting on this tomorrow night. So the plan is to then go out with some public relations outbursts so that people will know that they need a sticker to get on the property.
Yep.
And then I don't want to speak for the selectmen again on the fees, but I do know they have a process they need to follow before fees can be implemented. But I think it was for January 1 was the target date.
But they wanted us to meet tonight. They're meeting tomorrow.
Mhm.
Recommendation.
So these are two separate because the fees go into effect January first, but the transfer station stickers, we start selling them now.
Yep.
So that's why the fact that it's staying the same is great. It's actually easier, but that is why that was a separate thing. So they're gonna vote that for instantaneous, that the fees won't go into effect till January.
Right.
But it would probably be December first when we're selling, because that's when CMIK is supposed to drop off their bins for the collection, and that's when we'll close the door, because again, that's when people can actually have things picked up curbside.
Which is the new company we're going with.
Yeah. Now, they're having clothing bins down there, right?
Clothes
It's
bins
gonna be one, yeah,
and book bin.
and there'll be a book bin.
Yeah. Now, you don't need to stick it again to do that, right?
Yeah.
Yes, we're changing that also. Simply because we do have to pay for people to man them.
And because we'll have the people will have the opportunity to have them picked up.
Not the books.
Oh, not the books.
Just the textiles.
Okay, but the textiles.
We already have, like, yeah, Reed's Farm, they've got a clothing bin there.
Mhm.
Doesn't cost us anything.
Mhm.
Why would the people want to buy a sticker to go leave clothes out there when they go to Reed's and leave it? for nothing?
Well, as Mrs. Mello said, with the CMAK program, they also have the ability to have it picked up curbside at their home. So that's a convenience that we're offering at no charge. The only thing they ask is that they take whatever we can give them. So that there is an option that they don't need a sticker to get their stuff picked up.
The other thing is the Ben of Reeds, they're looking for a perfectly good shirt so they can resell it. CMRK in the pink bags, they take anything. You can rip the shirt in half and they'll take it because they recycle it and use it as something else if it can't be resold.
Okay.
So every textile goes in pink bags, but the Reed Farm only wants the good quality stuff.
Right. But there's no intent there. People could be dumping whatever they want in there.
Oh, they do.
They do.
And that's why it clutters up on the outside and that's
Yeah.
why they're not allowed except in certain locations. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, next on the agenda, review, discuss, act, stable bond permit, fee waiver request for Apache Way Farm Rescue Incorporated. I'm going to recluse myself from this because I've worked with this rescue. Basically, with a lot of the nonprofits and rescues, we do give them a break. Stable bond permit.
You're turning the chair over to Mrs. Mello.
Yes, I will turn the chair over.
Can we, so we had discussed this previously, but Paul was not on the board yet. Can you go over it again for him?
Sure. So Apache Farm is a farm in town that they take rescue animals
Where's that located?
across from Arujos.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
They don't have a sign out front, so they deal with rescue animals, but they are looking, they have a stable and they are asking for the fee to be waived because they deal with rescue animals and they're a nonprofit. So normally we would waive a fee like halfway for a nonprofit, but because it's rescues, they're asking for the whole fee to be waived. And what's the stable permit fee? Normally $25 or commercial is 50.
Yeah.
So it's not, it's a $50 fee that we're talking about.
And we generally, did you say we generally cut it in half? Really,
For
or
nonprofits like for food or whatever, we
Yeah.
would normally cut it.
that they want it waived altogether?
Yes, because it's a rescue as well as a nonprofit.
They also have an educational program there for handicapped people that come in. It's not just Rescue and Save, it's an educational program also. So it's helping to serve the town.
So
How many other organizations like this in town do we have? Okay, so we're not gonna have like
there's no others.
some kind of
It's not
influx
about
of,
setting.
I don't know of any other rescue except for the town one.
Till they hear they can have a free permit.
yeah. So what,
It's a lot to feed those animals, take care of
You
them.
have rescue horses?
Yeah, but I paid for them. I went broke one year. I went really broke one year with rescue buses. Because I wanted to save them.
So yeah, it's the only one we have in town. It's a nonprofit stable. And again, it's rescue. So the board could, you can decide anything. They're asking for the whole thing to be waived. You can settle for anywhere between $0 and $50. So
I'll make a motion that we waive it all together.
all right, so what do I say? I'm stepping down to second that. And can I get a vote?
Aye.
Then I can vote. I'm stepping down to vote aye. Am I done?
Can you say what happens? It passes.
And the motion passes.
So now you can.
You're for it, list.
Back to Barbara.
Don't you like it?
Oh, it's so fun.
You know, it's amazing. You watch out.
Do not.
Oh, boy. Okay. Review, discuss, act, use of third-party consultant for percolation tests and septic plan reviews.
So.
So,
So this one dovetails into where we started before. He came up with at the Board of Health, Board of Selectmen joint meeting. About, all right, we have these backlogs, because it comes and goes for how
Mhm.
often we get perks in the drought, whatever else. So it comes and goes. We currently do not have a mechanism in place for that backup. And as you said earlier, like, we don't have the money for it. My assistant is only $525 a year that gets 15 inspections. He's already done like half of those, I think. Because it's usually on the weekends that we grab him, or if I'm on vacation, he'll do them. That's what it was intended for. We don't have, again, anything set up for this outside review, but the question is,
So
do we want this one?
he cost us how much? $500 a year?
525, yeah.
that's the budget for him.
Okay, 525. That goes directly to him?
No, that's our budget. So if he does an inspection,
How much does he charge us?
it's like $35 an hour.
At $35 an hour. I'm confused. We had the budget for that, but people pay to have the perk test done, right? Perk test's not free.
They do. There is a fee, yes.
Okay, so where's the 525 come in?
He doesn't do perk tests. He just is doing food inspections for us.
On weekends or when Todd's
So
unavailable.
if I know I'm
Just
gonna be on
food
vacation, I don't
inspections.
schedule a perk test. So he's only jumping in for those inspections. So he's not lined up for that at this point.
Don't we charge for the restaurant inspections also?
We do.
So where's the 525 come? If the all inspections are being paid for by the person that's getting inspected. What's 525 for?
So we get a budget of $525. We pay him $35 per inspection. We get 15 inspections a year out of him. So we decide whether we want him to send him to Dunkin' Donuts, or we want to send him out to do Apache Farm, or whatever it may be. So,
Okay,
It's usually the temporary food inspections, the cow chip or Crystal Aggie or,
Rude Jones.
but that money comes back to us.
no, it goes into the general
All
fund.
of them, yeah.
And that's general fund money. It's not our regular budget.
That's part of our budget.
So if we had somebody that's third party that does perk tests.
Mhm.
As it's like I was saying before. That actually generates money. It's not an expense to us. Because we charge more for it to be done than the person that we're paying to get it done.
Well, as a.
Not necessarily. No.
Right,
If you're paying them by the hour and you're only asking for a perk test per amount, sometimes you're there a lot more hours than what you're getting that perk
It's
test.
hypothetically, we charge $400 for a new construction perk test, and it takes 6 hours. The review consultant, if we hire a review consultant, it may be more than that, so we would have to readjust our fee structure in order to accommodate this.
Mhm.
right. So we readjust our fee structure. We don't have to go looking to the selectmen for money. And that way there, the one person that is getting the perk test done, he's getting it done sooner. And not every taxpayer in town is paying for that over costs.
Right. Can
We
I,
don't get the money though, Paul.
oh, I can shed some light on that.
But
I want to preface by saying thank you for intervening before it was appropriate and well received. Second, what you're referring to is what's called the revolving fund.
Right.
You can establish a revolving fund,
Okay.
but that means that exactly what you're proposing would be in play. The money stays in the revolving fund. The money comes and goes based on the income and expenses. Obviously, you adjust the fee structure so that we always run at a positive,
Right.
that we have enough money to cover the costs. Revolving funds are not set up automatically. There's a process for those. And that would definitely include the administration and the accountant, the town accountant. So that is one way to do it. The other way to do it, which is easier, but not necessarily as clean as what you're proposing with with a revolving fund, is to make sure on paper, when you do your operating budget, you show that your user base fees are going to cover the cost for the third-party inspector. But that money still has to be appropriated every year through the budgeting process. And then as Mrs. Grassi indicated, any money that comes in would then go to the general fund. So it's an offset on paper, which proves that you're running the department in the green and not in the red. And you're not using taxpayer money to fund that operation. So there are two ways that you can do it. Either one works.
Like I said, either way could work. And that, that would take things off your plate. And you like the septic reviews. Even if they were more expensive, they're gonna be less expensive to the homeowner because especially now with the way the interest rates are going up. If they're delayed 60 days on getting the plans approved, their mortgage, their interest rate goes up, it's gonna cost them a lot more money. So I think anybody would rather pay a little bit more to get in their property quicker.
So I think anything we discussed tonight, I mean, I don't think we can have a formalized thing saying we want to do this, but I think we can discuss it with the selectmen and make sure we put all the ducks in a row for how it's going to happen.
Right.
But that's what tonight was do we want to do this? Do we not want to do this? Would we rather have outside consultants do housing and food inspections or whatever, like whatever it is, if we want to do it at all. So that's tonight was meant to just be let's start the discussion.
Yeah.
Because we are going to have a joint meeting with the selectmen on December 12th, so we could.
We've already established that the department's too small. To hire somebody else to come in, and we're gonna give them benefits and health insurance and everything else. Have a third party, we're only gonna pay as needed. Might not pay all winter long.
Well, how does that work, though? Would they be maxed at 5,000?
So if they are a consultant, then there are limitations. My per diem inspectors that I employ in my office are employees of the town. However, they're a non-benefited employee. They are covered by OBRA, which is the retirement fund, but the contribution is very, very small based on the money that they make. So they are an employee, but they are paid strictly based on a fee structure that's pre-approved. Like in my particular case, all my subordinates are paid $35 per inspection. You do one inspection an hour, it's 35, you do 10 an hour, it's the same price.
Yeah.
So it's not an hourly based setup. With a perk test, if I gave it some thought, I would envision that I think the consulting would probably work better because I don't think you will attract a per diem inspector or a perk test, knowing that they're going to get this much money when they're offering you their soil evaluator's license, their knowledge, their experience with soils. Plus, it's required by Title V for it to be witnessed by a licensed certified individual. So I think you're probably better off doing the consulting if you're going to do it that way. Same thing with the review process. I can tell you that I did plan reviews for other communities. I wasn't paid $35. I was paid a lot more than that because that's what I was worth and that's what the review is worth, as you bring that knowledge to the table. So all being said, I think the consulting is probably the way that you could go if you were going to entertain actually moving this along or having deeper discussions. And then it's a matter of, what is the sweet spot where you'll attract people in who are willing to do it, but also not outcost us so that our fee structure is way above other towns and communities.
I guess I misunderstood a little bit. He's talking about the license to evaluate soil. But Todd, when you go up for perk test, aren't you there just as a witness?
I am.
So somebody else is already there with their license.
So,
They're only gonna supply a witness.
right, but
They have to know what they're witnessing.
But hold on, and Todd will back me up with this, it's right in Title V. If the town has someone witnessing a Title V, a soil evaluation and a perk test that is not licensed, then you are not granted certain waiver allowances that Title V would allow under the repair or design processes. So it's always beneficial for a community to have a certified licensed agent witness the title, the soil evaluation and the perk test. Because if not, you sort of do a disservice to the designer. They're not allowed to get certain waivers.
So what are you specifically referring to? Separation of water table waiver requires a soil evaluator from the town to witness the water table. Separation of water table is the most common waiver for septic systems because we're trying to either avoid a pump or reduce the height of the mound in the yard. So,
Right.
but no, you're right. It does not have to be a soil evaluator that witnesses the stuff.
And there are a lot of communities who don't,
I know my uncle used to do it.
right?
I don't think he was licensed.
Right. But a designer will be, especially with a repair, as Agent Pilling said, when you go to, everybody's concerned about the mound. So you really need that waiver option available to you, because if you don't have it, obviously you're a foot or more higher out of the ground, so.
So we had kicked around years ago now. That I do the soil evaluation, but we talked about using the senior work off where we would have senior sit there and you're just timing water with it. It doesn't need to be me that does that.
Mhm.
Tom Hires, as a board member, used to sit at some perk test and just hang out there for the day, basically watching the water go down. But I determined the groundwater table in the soils, and then I would leave and he would stay the rest of the time. But the senior work off has not taken off in Dayton. Different reasons, which. but I-
Seniors want to retire.
Yeah, I wonder if Tommy wants to do some work.
Hmm.
I think
I'm sorry, how does that senior work off work, Todd? I know I've heard it tossed around, but,
there's a tax credit that's given to them off their property taxes.
oh, really?
I don't know the
And they
amount.
can only earn like $700 a year or something, and they have to get paid minimum wage and whatever. There's a whole lot of stuff to go with it.
It's a state-supported program. I don't know the logistics though, but when you're retired and you have a fixed income, any amount helps off your taxes. So
Now, what about the septic plan reviews? That fall under the same category as the perk test?
Yes, except that plan reviews is kind of a singular as opposed to an unknown number of hours. Like you set the price for a septic plan review at $200 or whatever, and new construction $300, whatever the number is. Jerry Bernard was $150, but that was 5 years ago when he stopped doing it. So I don't know what the current rate is now for review engineers for towns, but.
No matter how we would structure it, it would be structured so the person building would pay the fee anyways.
right.
Mhm.
No, when I was hired, when we first started here, part of the argument was that instead of paying all this money to outside consultants, we would keep it the same amount of money in-house, and then you'd get more. I could do more than just this outside consultant that only did the plan reviews. The problem is that in the 5 years, we've taken on so much responsibility that I don't have time to.
Well, that's what I mean.
And that's,
So it worked back then, but now it's not working.
Well, they brought everything in-house.
Right.
So our food and housing inspector turned into the health agent, who was an outside. And the soils was Joe Pacheco.
Yep.
And we had, yes, pretty, and then we had Jerry Bernard doing plan reviews. So there were actually 6 jobs that were brought into the office or in-house,
Right.
so to speak.
So to say,
So we kept that money in-house and then it all went on one person
right.
from,
So now you get too much on one person's plate.
And plus adding stormwater and
Right.
transfer station.
and solid waste and trash was simpler 5 years ago than it is now. It's a lot more complicated.
No, right. I understand. that.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
with all the regulations coming down the pipeline. They're all
So-
getting crazy.
And that's causing delays and people being unhappy.
Yeah, and it's like, where to
People
go
being
first?
stressed out, yourself included. you know,
Then they have the
stressed
state-
Because people are complaining this isn't done.
The state requiring a lot of things from them in the last 2 weeks. that the state has to know to set up their things that they
Right.
want to do.
And that's how we can't have a third party do. So we
No.
look at what can we have. a third
Mhm.
party do. You know, just to free up everybody's time.
So again, if it's something that the board is interested in, we could express that to the selectmen so they can decide how they want us to set it up or whatever. I mean, I know they already have it in building department or per diem inspectors. They use outside consultants to 53Gs but like, how do we want to set this up? If it's something,
Right.
if the board is interested in doing.
Well, I know that when we've had the dual meetings with the selectmen. That seems to be the direction that they want to go with. You know, so maybe we should make a recommendation that when we give them our other recommendations for tomorrow. That we give them a recommendation, not how we're gonna exactly, but give them a recommendation that I'd like to look in that direction. And then we further will go up with their advice.
I mean, and you're talking just perk tests and septics, or are you talking housing and food or any of it?
Yeah, there are a lot of the other things that we could give them recommendations, such as restaurant inspection.
I know
That can go.
Taunton, they hire independent,
Sorry.
So we gotta start somewhere. So I guess when
right?
we have in front of us and then go from there.
Yeah, we could always put the restaurants on the next agenda. But at least to get the ball rolling so that we can meet when we do have a dual meet with the selectmen. I'm not saying,
Perk tests, septic installations, Title V.
plan, well, all we have here right now is the perk test and septic plan reports. I don't think we can go and add what's on.
I
Okay.
think that's how it was suggested at the last meeting. I'm
Yeah.
just saying that if this is something the board is considering, is there something else you wanted to consider? But I couldn't put it on the agenda because it wasn't presented that way.
Right, that's why I'm saying that if we were to just go with this for tonight, on our next agenda, we could, well, tonight we could talk about what we want on our next agenda. Then we could add them, and then,
Well,
so that way they would not throw so much of the select.
the only other thing I'm gonna throw, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, Mrs. Mello, where are we at with public health excellence grant?
So we just met today. This is the first time we've met in maybe a month. It was my understanding the last time we met that they had put out a job posting for the grant coordinator. It was unclear if that had happened, but Mike Hugo was on. He had two candidates that he's going to forward to Anne Marie in North Attleboro that he thought looked like good candidates for that. But we really can't do anything until we get that data back from the state with all this, with all our assessment stuff.
She's referring to the phase 3 assessment, which is all those documents that the state is.
Boxes.
All 300.
Boxes and things that have to be done.
So even if we had a grant coordinator right now, there's nothing to coordinate. We don't have any data.
It's months away,
Oh, yeah, it's,
even a year.
yeah, I don't have high hopes. It's just, it's a lot of information for them to go through, and so that's where we are currently.
I know, and when they sent the letter down for them to. I mean, actually, did you see the boxes that were behind you in that room? That's what has to be done.
Oh, okay, yeah, and regardless of whatever they come up with, it's just additional help. It's not, we still need a good foundation to work off of.
Right,
One of the states, the things the state is strongly encouraging, I won't say pushing yet, but they're looking for regionalization. Because the town of Dayton, I may have soils experience, but I don't have housing. So regionalize with somebody else and you get a pool of qualified people is what they're effectively going for.
Right, I could see that, however, if you already got your plate full here in Dayton, we can't afford to have you go to Taunton or Rehoboth.
no, he won't be
It
going.
won't be our,
No, they'd hire somebody from them to go to the other ones, to the different towns to do it. Like if we needed somebody for housing for certain things, they would have somebody,
Well, you're talking about two different things. You're talking about
Right.
what's on the table now, and then the regionalization, I think, is going to be the result of that program.
right.
Regionalization will be completely different from what's being discussed right now with the grant.
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, the state will tell you they're not looking
Right, that,
If you want to
regionalized.
look it up, it's the SAFE 2.0, it's SAPHE 2.0,
Mhm.
and it's 1,000 pages long, and
We'll get down to 1,000 days, sorry.
Typically,
I think we've all
It's a-
established ad nauseum that we need immediate.
Yeah, the grant is,
Oh, and that's not,
Yeah.
that's not the solution.
Say PHE.
That's
So it's safe, but
that's-
SAPH. E 2.0. And it's lots of reading, you can have lots of fun with it.
So, I'm thinking that we should at least start the ball rolling and get the selectmen to put on the agenda for our joint meeting about third-party consultant. And because they're looking for recommendations for us, so. I'll make a motion that we recommend to the Board of Selectmen that would like to have conversation, consult with them on perk tests and the septic plan reviews. Nothing carved in stone, just back up.
Well, do we have to have a motion or can we just,
I think it would be strong.
Okay.
Yeah, I think because they're asking for this motion, so.
Because based on that, we can then write them a memo saying, we would like to do this, so it becomes formalized.
Right, so then they can put it on the
Right.
agenda and like I said, nothing carved in stone right now, but at least to get the ball rolling. So I make that motion.
I'll second that.
can we have a vote on this, please?
Aye.
Aye.
And I vote aye. So Roz, could you? Go ahead, make a letter, make a letter.
We have to do one for the transfer station fee.
A motion.
and The sticker fee anyway.
Okay,
So are you asking what the motion was?
yes,
So there was a recommendation to notify the Board of Health, Board of Selectmen, that the Board of Health would like to have a discussion regarding third-party consultants. Review, third-party consulting for perk tests and septic plan reviews.
Mhm.
sounds good. Thank you, Roz.
You're welcome. So yes, and we'll get those letters to the Board of Selectmen. When are they meeting?
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night,
Okay.
Yeah, but they can't discuss it. It's not on the agenda, so it'll
No.
be their next meeting.
right.
Next meeting.
Or the joint meeting or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah,
Didn't. Why did they want us to meet tonight?
I think it was for the sticker fee.
Yes,
It was, for
Their
the-
third meeting is tomorrow night, so they did it already.
and the transfer station fees.
yeah.
All right, so that's all they really needed from us tonight.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
So both of them are on their agenda.
yes.
Yeah.
I haven't
As far as
seen
I
the
know,
agenda,
yes.
Okay. So it's transfer station sticker.
Right now, let me just use the minutes real quick.
These have to roll something.
We just wrote it, doesn't have.
We're doing two, doing another one.
Yes, it's on the Board of Selectmen's agenda tomorrow night.
what is
These transfer station fees and the,
Good.
Both of them.
good? Till Paul comes back.
The date of the next solid waste meeting. Do you have that in there? Like December 6th?
yes,
December 6th is the next solid waste meeting if you wanted to. Monday,
Maybe.
Monday at 4 o'clock, so it's a little different.
and I think it's here now, right?
Well, yeah, but I don't know, we got kicked out last night for some other meeting, but I don't know if that's the normal thing or not.
No, last night there was a lot of meetings last
Instead of
night.
prime time, it's not here, so. If you wanted to join,
What was the date again, Todd?
12/6.
6. We needed more room because they were so well attended.
I bet. Just because you guys got so many members, the members aren't attendance.
No, the members are, we had quite a few last night.
Well, it's 9 on the committee and then we're gonna, what, 1 extra? So, yeah.
Along with that, I don't know how long that will take, or what else they have on that meeting with the Board of Selectmen, but I think maybe we should touch on food services also,
Wait, you talked about the third party?
third party.
Well, if that wasn't on our agenda,
Right.
so I think he's looking to have it on our next agenda.
Yeah, we put it on our next.
Okay.
agenda.
We're meeting again next week.
Right,
Yeah, the 8th.
yes.
And then the selectmen will be meeting
Okay.
on like the.
So can you put that on the 8th then, agenda? For food services?
Oh, that's our regular meeting, right?
Yeah, the regular one, huh?
And then the one with the joint one is the 12th. Yeah, okay. I knew the last meeting, we had a lot of numbers going around and I was like, I hope someone will tell me if I never show up to something.
I know.
I try and send out those reminders.
Yes, thank you. They're helpful.
Oh. Something I don't understand about this chart here. Stormwater has its own committee,
Yes.
Subcommittee of the Board of Health.
subcommittee of the Board of Health. Yeah, the septics, solid waste, housing, transfer station, public health, that's directly us.
Mm-hmm.
So that box should be moved down here, stormwater. Shouldn't be even with all of our other tasks because it's a subcommittee. And they have their own committee. And
Yeah, this was just meant to be a list of the chores, not necessarily a hierarchy, but
Yeah.
yeah.
but I'm just saying,
We tried doing that and it was too complicated, so we just put it straight out here.
Okay.
This is what we've got to work with.
Yeah.
That's why it's not lowered.
I mean, it is something.
And that is very,
Technically solid waste subcommittee also, but
Mhm.
Yeah,
Solid
okay.
waste is the same thing.
yes, okay.
Um,
And well, I did go to that. We are discussing the Board of Health office priorities, right?
yep, when I get to it.
They said I was in the minutes, I thought that.
Oh, no, I would wait for you.
Well, the way you were talking about the food service, I thought that.
No,
already have
no,
that
no,
somewhere.
no, it's because we were looking for
Okay.
outsourcing. After review, discuss act, Board of Health office priorities.
again, this came up as a result of our joint meetings with the selectmen. And it kind of was a direct result of the stormwater discussion and about how many hours the Board of Health office is spending on stormwater each week.
Right,
And it came up that the Board of Health should set priorities for the office staff so that we are spending time on what the board wants us to be spending time on, because you're our bosses.
exactly. And that's why I use an example, stormwater is a subcommittee. And we weren't here, but at last meeting, Nancy came in and she was supposed to talk about stormwater. She started talking about how this whole department needs to be restructured and how everything's supposed to go
Well, we all know that.
for an hour and 15 minutes, and we got no.
How many meetings have you been out with Nancy? Nancy's very smart and she wants us all to be as smart as her. So she
Well-
tries to enlighten us and she has a
No,
good point.
I
And
understand. But
you have to have patience to understand, but she has her good points.
I understand she's done a lot of good for the town. However, she made mention to walking into the Board of Health and telling Todd, I don't care what you're working on. I get an emergency, you're coming with me. Well, she's underneath the board.
Well, does she do that, Chief?
She said she has.
She's done it a couple times, but it was like basically the Doris.
Emergencies.
Doris States was kind of, I'm saying emergency, but it was.
Yeah,
It hasn't been very often.
and there you go again with priorities. When we have priorities, we have to take care of priorities. And certain things are priorities.
Right.
I mean, at the solar farm up on William Street, we had problems with dust, with water.
Yeah, but Nancy didn't come in and say, you need to go do this.
No, but I mean,
Yes.
that is an example of a
Right, no.
priority.
No, I understand.
And,
I was going off of what she said, what came out of her mouth was, If I walk in there and I need Todd, I'm gonna tell him, just stop doing what you're doing. You're coming with me.
She does the same thing with Jim though.
Yeah, if,
That's me by the ear.
And Jimmy says, yeah, I know.
it does a lot of good for the town. However, we gotta manage the Board of Health. We're understaffed now. So if there's a true emergency, call 911. If it's not, then you can,
But 911 would have no idea what to do with that emergency. You have to understand that
well, I
too.
guess
Paul.
it's not an
I get your
emergency.
point.
911 for emergencies.
You know, when you have three children and they all want your attention and you have to take, okay, this one's the most important at this minute. There are times that we have said, Nancy, you're just gonna hold on here. You know, I mean, it's not Nancy goes this or any other person. Right now, it doesn't it can't happen.
Well, that's
Word crisis, not emergency, but still.
Yeah, it can't happen.
mean-
I think she was getting just a little,
She was talking about, what was it, the retention ponds that are overgrown. They got
Oh, yeah.
3, 4, 5 feet of grass. That's not an emergency. That took a long time to grow that big. Now she can come in and stress to the board, say, you know, I'd like to have scheduled time that Todd can go out there with me. And it could all be
is that
scheduled.
an emergency? Has she has ever used that for an emergency?
No, that's not an emergency.
Oh, that's not an emergency.
She used that as an example.
No, but it's not. I don't know
I
what she
think
was
it's not.
thinking.
I'm just saying, I'm only saying what she uses.
Yeah, well, you gotta take it with a grain of salt. I mean, that's Nancy. You know, but I have been there quite a bit and I have never, ever had her come in and say, you have to come out right now with me. But
Yeah,
there,
not usually the right now, it's like, we have to get out there, let's schedule it, Ross set up an appointment so we can all go, or that kind of thing.
exactly, that kind of a thing.
One that was the critical one that she basically said you need to drop what you're doing was when Dora Estates was going in Taunton.
What was that?
Dora Estates in Taunton,
Yeah,
but it was within whatever throwing distance, stones throw away from our town well. But it was in Taunton and they didn't notify the town of Dayton that they were doing the subdivision and there was a public meeting coming up and we needed to be prepared for it. And so she needed a defense prepared for that meeting. And so that was, and then there was been a couple other meetings we had to
now,
plan everything to review the plans because we had a very limited timeline.
what do we have to do with the Dayton wells?
Well, the drinking water is under the purview of the Board of Health, and stormwater, it was stormwater affecting the town well, so and stormwater is under the Board of Health.
But we have a water district.
We do,
They control the wells.
they do,
They do the testing, all the buildings around.
they do.
They answer the state, they answer the reports. They're the ones that are supposed to be privy
It
to all
is, but
this.
they were not notified of the subdivision. And when we found out about it, the only way the town could defend itself was to hire an engineer, do a letter, and to get an engineer to drop everything and do a letter in 3 days. To hire an outside consultant, so they used me.
Mhm.
That's why it was a emergency.
And the water district should have paid you for that.
Stormwater, it got paid out of the stormwater budget for it, for my time at meetings and stuff at night,
Yeah,
but
my only point is that they've got so much on their plate. You need to have the least amount of people that come through the door to bother them. The better, let them get their job done, you know.
Well, it's kind of hard when you got residents coming in too, we have problems.
I don't think you're talking about residents.
What's that?
I'm
No,
talking about.
we have a couple of them that,
Yeah. I mean,
Jim will come over and say, hey, we need to go out to a site, we gotta go now. Okay, we go. Jim deemed it a crisis or emergency enough, we had to go deal with
I'll
it.
tell them to stop that from now.
no, you can't.
What'd
I
you
mean-
say?
I'll tell them to stop that from now.
But no, because it,
But that's their job. You see, we can't tell them,
priority shift as the.
you have to call us when you have an emergency.
No,
We have to be competent and confident of them to know what is an emergency or a crisis. This is the health department.
oh, I know.
Things happen very quickly. It's not the accounting department. And we can't always put our thumb and say, you have to call me, you have to ask me.
No, that's my whole point. They should be able to be competent to run it. People coming in and, well, I want to talk about this, I want to talk about that. that's what the meetings, are. Meetings. we
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah.
Somebody wants to come in. I'm sure if a resident comes in, they probably just got a simple question. They don't hang around for half an hour. Right.
Most of them, no.
Right.
Oh, well, I don't know. Roz has a couple of special ones that I like to check.
Well, those are ones that.
And Roz is still doing her thing and.
What about a
answering
timer?
phone.
What
Yeah.
time was it? Sorry, I only got this.
Oh, no, she doesn't just stop and sit there, believe me. Come and sit at my desk for a couple hours every day, see what she really does. You will be very surprised.
So priority shift during the day, like if we get notified from Department of Public Health that there's triple E in town, that's our priority. That is.
Oh, yeah, I can understand that.
So certain things shift, but you're talking in general terms, like it's where stormwater.
I'm sorry, Jim, go ahead.
So I actually can understand where Paul's coming from. If you're a subcommittee of the Board of Health, then I think it would behoove whoever needs the services of Todd, if they're extenuating and they're gonna take up a lot of his time, that they at least notify.
Oh, yeah, a lot of his time. Yeah, I totally
That doesn't
understand that.
happen. And
No,
I think, and I'm not speaking for you, but I think that's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
Because at least if this body is responsible for what comes out of that office, and there's a subcommittee of the Board of Health that's going to require Todd to spend extra time, which takes him away from the other things.
Yeah.
Then I think this body needs to know about it.
well, I'm on that subcommittee also, so I hear and see a lot of the things that are going on.
What subcommittee? The.
But
stormwater?
the
You're on-
stormwater, yeah.
stormwater.
There is a board of health member that is appointed that you all vote to decide who's on that stormwater committee, and that's an annual appointment, so.
And we do go out and look at different jobs and there are jobs that things going on in town that every single month they're back here and we have to have regulations, believe me. It's not easy.
Now, there's nobody below the stormwater committee. Just a committee
You
that's,
need another subcommittee below them.
oh, not a committee or a person.
No,
You know,
no,
normally, like, as we sit here, we wouldn't go out and do a restaurant inspection or.
no, no. And
That's where you come in.
Yes.
So the stormwater committee doesn't have anybody say, "Well, go check that out."
well,
Well,
they have conservation,
Yeah,
me's on it.
Todd's the stormwater agent.
Okay.
I'm the stormwater agent, but any one of you three can go do a restaurant inspection. You are all agents of the Board of Health.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it unless you serve safe. But yes, you can go.
You're safe now, aren't you?
I haven't got my results yet.
Stormwater committee, if I'm not available,
Forget.
we'll go. Yes.
Oh, I went, I just haven't got.
It's
my- Okay.
it's a committee and you're reporting to the committee. I, as the agent, have the authority to sign like a stormwater permit that Jim doesn't have.
Right.
But Jim can go look at a site and say, yeah, we have a problem here, stop dumping that in the river, that kind of thing. So, yes. Am I saying that right?
It's complicated. Stormwater is very extremely
Yes, I
complicated.
do agree with that, yes.
It works
But we
closely with
usually
them.
work together when we do anything. When Jim grabs me and says, we gotta go to this house.
Yeah.
There's a stormwater thing. I'll grab Lisa or whatever.
And then the highway
Very
department.
rarely is it just one person that is acting.
Right.
Yeah,
There should
it's a
be more
joint.
than one.
It's a joint.
There should be more than one.
It's joint.
But I still understand how you said the meeting that Berkeley does nothing with stormwater. huh?
The Board of Health is in charge of stormwater, but they don't do any part of it. So like the highway department fills in the MS4. But that's effectively it. They don't track construction sites, NPDES permits, any of that stuff.
Why do we take on so much more?
Because we're technically obligated to do it. Berkeley is most likely going to be getting fined by the EPA. We got fined however many years ago it was. It was before my time.
Yeah.
Is it in the bylaws that it's
We
not?
have a stormwater bylaw, but it's also mandated by both the EPA and DEP. So they're the towns that aren't doing it are in violation
Really?
of the statute, yes. Does Dayton lead the charge? Yes. Does it make a difference? Yes. We require trap rock or some type of an apron on all construction sites that stops stuff from going out into the roadway. Which not only protects the stormwater and the wetland environment, but also stops you from driving through a mud pit in your car that you have nothing to do with.
Right, but isn't that just plain illegal?
Well, it is if you have regulations, which is
Yeah.
why we have stormwater regulations.
Right.
No, what I'm saying, I'm not trying to twist these, I'm just saying that if I'm driving down the road and I see a muddy runoff, I'm gonna be calling the police department, call the highway department, say, hey, get on it, clean it up. That shouldn't be.
Right.
It's like littering.
But part of stormwater management and the charge for stormwater is that we try and do preventative measures.
Mhm.
Stop that from even happening in the first place. So it is making a difference. Is Dayton responsible to lead the charge on stormwater management? No. That's a role that we assumed.
The
But
committee is very,
mhm,
Would you say leaves?
lead,
Oh, leave.
lead.
most towns don't have a committee. Most towns just say, all right, Board of Health, you're in charge of it. And they do whatever they want to do, or the DPW, you're in charge of it, or planning. Or sometimes if they have a town planner or a town engineer, that department. And they usually take care of it. We do it by committee, which seems to work much better for getting everybody involved, and it makes enforcement easier. But it also makes the
Is it-
the proactive part of it.
Is it taxing? Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. As a subcommittee of the Board of Health, if you feel that we're doing too much, and it's taking the board from doing other things that it needs to do, well, that's something that you can discuss. But, yeah, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't taxing. It is.
You have a planning board member on too, right? And then the street department, the highway department. So it's kind of like a little from everybody gets together and brainstorms and watches out for when they put a housing project in, or when especially solar panel guys.
But if you look at it in the big picture, and this is, we've been tracking our time since August 8th or whatever it was. We're spending about 20% of our time on stormwater. That's Roz and I.
Yeah.
I can't speak for the other stormwater committee members, but we're also charged with. Not only is it dealing with stormwater, but you have the stormwater meeting, which is usually a 3-hour event. You get to deal with minutes, permits. I have to do plan reviews. But I'm not reviewing like the drainage stuff that goes up for 53G, but I still have to like kind of give it my once over. But yeah, it's about 20% of the office time.
It's quite a bit.
Yes, but it is needed though.
About what, 7 hours a week, 8 hours a week.
It is needed.
It is needed, but looking at priority wise,
No.
is that our priority? Like, priority wise, we want to make sure that residents that are paying for services like the septic system and stuff like that take priority when it's not an emergent or whatever stormwater thing, if it's just a regular stormwater thing. And that's what we got to look at, what kind of things we're going to prioritize in a general day so that we don't get behind again and stuff like that.
So just simple math, because I know a couple of these things aren't accurate anymore, right? They're not part of your purview, right?
That's why they're shaded.
But
Yeah.
not.
So if you just do simple math based on what you have here, and I don't mean the separate line items, just the blocks. Then you're spending about 10% too much time on stormwater. If you did equally across the board.
Yeah.
So if you're already spending double the time that you should be on stormwater, something else is getting affected by that.
Right.
Oh, so when I started here, it was 25 hours a week as a health agent. They upped me to 28 hours a week to be a stormwater agent and a health agent, and I was given 3 hours a week for stormwater. And that was the limit. That was back when Dora States and Nancy's like, I don't care, you need to spend time on it. So, obviously I went above and beyond, but when I went to 35 hours, there was no limitation put on stormwater. So, I mean, if the Board of Health wanted to put a limit on it, there's no more than whatever, 5 hours a week, or pick a number, I don't care, but you could do that too. But again, it ebbs and flows. Like I may have 1 week with a stormwater meeting, the meeting alone could be a 4-hour meeting.
So that eats into your 35 hours.
Yes. Did part of it.
You don't get a stipend for being on.
Not to be on the committee, there was talk about getting me one being the stormwater agent, and that I could be doing a lot of my stuff outside of my Board of Health time.
Right.
But that didn't go anywhere either, so.
So does anybody on the stormwater committee get any stipend? All free?
It's all part of our salary.
All part of you. Well,
I mean, people like Nancy or what people
no,
aren't,
No, those are all unpaid positions.
Okay,
But there is a budget.
well, it must be something.
Yeah, the conservation member, the planning board member, Nancy, Barbara, they don't get.
No, we don't get anything. No, a lot of it, I think, is the highway department doing clean outs and whatever they have to do.
A lot of that is included in the budget, so it's a big budget.
It's a big budget. It is a big budget.
Cleaning the drainage basins, mowing the basins down and all that stuff, it's all part of it. It's not just our time.
They mow the bases down? Aren't those on private property?
No, some of them we own.
Really?
But not all of them, but some of them are municipally owned. When the municipally owned stormwater infrastructure needs to be maintained by the town.
Right. No, I didn't think that they were owned by us. I thought that, you know,
Yeah,
the
They're-
community.
yeah, the ones going online now are all held in either an HOA or private ownership
Right,
with stormwater oversight, and we make them put up a maintenance bond before we'll accept it to ensure that if they don't maintain it, we maintain it.
right.
Fortunately, we haven't had that happen yet.
But what's happening is as we get more and more subdivisions and more responsibilities being shifted to homeowner associations,
Right.
it's more work. And not today necessarily, but over a 20-year plan, it's just gonna keep adding to what we need to do. Say we struggle just to put together an inventory list of what
Yeah.
subdivisions we do have.
So just for edification purposes, because I don't think I've seen you at a stormwater meeting either.
I don't think you ever will
Oh, we have pizza.
in the world.
I say that in fun, but anyway, there are a lot of things that we're not doing. Which ironically, if you look at how many people are involved and how much time we spend on it, you'd say, how can you not be getting everything done? I can tell you that there are things that we're not doing simply because we don't have enough resources and time. Does that mean, it's the end of the world and we're in great violation? No, it doesn't. But it does question a town's ability to actually do it in full force. I don't know if it's possible.
Right.
Yeah, I don't see how any town could live up to the stormwater standards
No.
that the
Pretty
state
high.
is setting, the EPA is setting. You'd
Yeah,
almost have to have a department dedicated to stormwater.
well, that's like the transfer station, though. Those things are getting crazy too. The EPA is coming down. And all these requirements,
It's not EPA, it's DEP.
EP.
DEP.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of requirements that, the normal person out there doesn't realize that. Till you come to one of
So
the
as far
meetings.
as the priorities go. I mean, we can keep talking about it, we can table it and talk about it later, we can wait until after the solid waste discussion with the selectmen at the December 12th meeting. You can do whatever you want with it, but it's a pretty big. Stuff,
I know it is.
it's not a simple, hey, stop working on stormwater. You can't do
I
that.
wasn't planning on making decisions on it tonight anyways.
And it puts a lot of stress on the department because they're doing something knowing that something else should be doing too. It's a lot of stress.
So you suggested that I make a motion that we table this?
No, I'm not suggesting, I'm saying that it's a big discussion and I don't think anybody here is gonna say, let's do this, but I mean, unless I'm wrong, unless there's something you were thinking, but.
Yeah, if you guys have any more input. Let's just say we table it.
Do we have a motion to table?
I'll make a motion, we table it.
I'll second that.
Do we have a vote? Could I have a vote?
What's that?
Could I have a vote?
I,
Step down.
Oh.
Aye.
Aye. Just say aye.
yeah,
Oh, good. The motion passes to table.
I thought you want to step down and vote too.
Board of Health priorities, what happened?
Thought you want to step down and vote too.
Oh, no, she only has to step down to second.
Yeah, really, I know, I just do it, what can I say?
I thought you voted on the other stuff too.
I have a question. Sometimes you guys, we have workshops to work on things. Would this be something that we could have a workshop on? Like, how are we gonna come at this?
You know, quantify it and everything else. Yeah, that could be a meeting all on itself, but we just.
Tabling it, but I would like to have a plan because the Board of Selectmen are gonna ask about it. It was something that they were. So,
Well-
The only thing they have on their agenda is for us to give them information on what our opinions of this transfer station and the disposal fee.
no, I mean on our joint meeting on the 12th.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll bring it up.
Well, we have another meeting next Thursday, we can put it on that agenda. And we could further the discussion. People may have come up with some kind of wonderful idea by then. And
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
so we can definitely put it on there.
Okay,
You can just back.
I can throw it away for you if you don't want it. You can pile it. I don't know before.
No public.
I'm sorry, no, I was just thinking about something. Would you? Would you like to talk about third party? You on that meeting? What do we have on that
We
meeting?
already sent you a letter.
Yeah, I know, but I mean amongst ourselves too.
We were gonna add on food services to talk about third party for food services. And then we can add that into the letter.
What do we have on, do you know what we have on the agenda? So,
Decide to vote that.
Ross, okay,
I really don't. There was a couple of things.
Nicole's gonna do a presentation. About food.
Don't make fun of my presentation.
We didn't get to see it.
Watch the video. I'm not going through that again.
You made a video?
No. Yeah, no. It's a part of selectmen meeting.
For us and for the town, and she did a presentation to the selectmen about how successful it was.
But you saw it. I was the night the selectmen
But none of the videos of get published. How do you go see them?
on YouTube.
YouTube,
Yeah, go to YouTube. You won't find them.
Philip Dayton.
They're not posted yet.
Oh, okay.
There's been a lag in getting the meetings posted.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Usually
the last joint meeting between us and the Board of Selectmen that's on the YouTube is November 2nd.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who's responsible for putting, Brett used to do it, but Brett's not around.
I don't know
Is it
who's
cable
responsible for
people?
that. I don't know.
Like, there has been a lag.
Oh, big time. And a lot of people depend on that because instead of coming to the meeting, they just, well, we'll just watch it afterwards.
And before you get to the next meeting, you can watch that one, yes.
Right.
We can ask.
The last meeting we had.
Note to self,
The last meeting that we had. Him and the selectmen said. The system was down, so nobody can see it live. But if anybody wants to have input, you can go on Zoom. Well, you can't go on Zoom a month later when you see it.
Mhm.
It's not live. Not much sense telling them that you can't.
Do we have any public input? Not too many people here. Okay,
It's not like a solid waste committee meeting.
could I have a motion for adjournment?
Make a motion to adjourn.
I second that.
Have a vote?
I.
Motion's passed, meeting is adjourned.
There you go.
Night, everyone.
Feel better?